Okay, students, welcome to a lesson about the principles of art. There are 6 of them, and if you didn't watch the Elements of Art already, what we're going to do right now is something very similar. So you need to pause the video and get a pencil and paper, and then you can begin writing with me. So we're going to begin with 6 principles of art, and these 6 can be divided up in more ways than just 6, but we'll just go with it. And remember, you're going to use one principle of art in a project that I give you, and you're going to use one element of art that I already gave you. So you're going to have multiple show up, but you're going to have to show me that one of these principles is really important to you in that art piece, and then one element of art as well. So the first word I'm going to give you and define with you is pattern. So pattern, you know what? I think you know this very well. You've all seen a checkerboard pattern, and you've all seen, like a flower pattern on something. So you've got, different patterns. They're very symbol related. One of these is, if you remember our elements, one of these is organic and one of these is geometric. Maybe you have seen just simple patterns like stripes, right? And so you get the idea. Patterns can show up in so many different ways. You could have a leopard skin. That's a very organic looking pattern, leopard skin, and leopard spots. So you think about that a little bit. The piano keys are a pattern. Lots of things show up in things man-made and things in nature. So what we're just going to say is that it refers to repetition. So it repeats itself. It continues to repeat itself. It's a good design element to have a pattern somewhere. It can be varied, but it establishes a beat. Okay, so that is a metaphor. It's symbolic. That just means if you're playing a drum beat, it repeats itself, right? Okay. Now, please keep these notes in your sketchbook because these will come up on the test, guaranteed. The next one is a little bit different. So it's movement. And you're like, Mr. Kimball, art doesn't move. When we're drawing or we're doing like a painting or something, that it actually doesn't move. Two-dimensional, it doesn't move. But you're right. But it refers to the idea or parts of a picture that suggest movement or direction, suggest direction. And I can't tell you, we could have a longer conversation about this sometime, but the idea is that, if I make a picture and it has these big shapes in it going like this, you'll tell me immediately, hey, that's pointing to the right. So of course it has a direction. If somebody is walking in a picture, you tell me which way this person is running, right? So I'm just gonna do this. It's a stick figure. I'm not a stick figure fan, but you tell me which way this guy is running. And sometimes we have motion signs, and he's going this way to the right. So this is how movement works in two-dimensional ways, is that it suggests motion, direction or motion. I'm going to write motion here. All right. So that is a big deal when we're dealing with art and you're trying to show movement. You could use that for one of your principles of art to show the direction something's happening in a picture. Now, the next one is dealing with proportions. That's a big, big deal. Proportions are not easy sometimes, but sometimes when we generalize, it can be obvious. So here's a definition. It deals with the sizes and relationships. of objects and things. Okay, I'm going to use animals right now. So we generalize with proportions. You could draw this with me. This is going to be a dog. It's not going to be pretty, but here's a dog that looks like a duck. Darn it, I thought I'd do better than that. This dog is standing here, and how do we generalize dogs compared to the size, say, of a cat? Well, I know there's different sized dogs, but we tend to think that this dog, anyway, we could say that this dog is bigger than my cat. Cats aren't usually huge, so there's less variety of sizes of cats unless we get into wild cats, but house cats. So I'm just making this cat sit here. You can draw this too. And here's its long tail. This cat is generally smaller than that dog. Now, in what case could we make that cat look bigger than the dog? Is as if it's really close up and the dog's way back in the background. Then the dog will look smaller than the cat. Here is a runny babbit. This is a bunny rabbit. And we can say that generally they're about the same size as cats. Sometimes, at least our monster rabbits out where I live are about the same size as my cats. Sometimes they're smaller though. I mean, little bunny rabbits are smaller. So we're dealing with relationships of sizes when it comes to proportions. There's ways to measure these to get them right, and we'll have a lesson on proportions in a drawing that we do in class too. But you could pick that one. You know, an elephant is going to be much bigger than any of these, but could you make one of these bigger than an elephant? Well, if the elephant's way back in the background, then that elephant is going to, there's its ear, that elephant is going to, you know, it looks smaller, but it's just back in the background. So here's kind of a horizon line there. All right, let's move on. The next one is dealing with this idea of balance. Balance is achieved when components, that's parts of your artwork, are perceived or seen as harmonious. What do you mean harmonious? Isn't that a musical term? Yes, it is. That means that they belong. So maybe that they're balanced symmetrically. Symmetrical. That's an important word. So I'm just going to give you some basic pictures here to illustrate this. Let's say I have a picture. We're going to do several. In this picture, I have a dot up here, or an object. It doesn't matter what it is, and something is dividing them. It could be a fence. It doesn't matter what I'm drawing. These are just symbolic. So on the other side of this line here, I want to make it symmetrical. So I make it the same here. I could do that side to side also. If I have a picture that has something in the middle, I don't care what it is, and you have this huge thing on top, and then tiny something over here, then we're going to say that's not balanced. I often see students do a picture like this. You don't have to draw this, where there's something little here. And it's all this white space. We wouldn't say that's balanced. We'd have to put something over here to make it balanced. Another thing is with some symmetry is maybe you have something in the middle. It's always easy to put something right in the middle, but then you're going to maybe have some things coming away from it, and this way and that way. We're not just going to leave it this way, so we have to balance it by going like this, and now it's more symmetrical or harmonious. Okay, I really like this idea of harmony, and so well, let's use the idea of harmonious things in the next one. The idea that things are harmonious is an idea of let's make a picture here. Maybe this is a big picture. Okay, a landscape. So this is my paper, and I have some pine trees, and you know, maybe some of them are overlapping. We're dealing with spatial issues. I might have some mountains and a lake back here, and I paint this all nice with some more trees, and these are just pine trees. So I know it doesn't look great, but for a quick sketch, we're just dealing with the subject. So what happens is that this is all it's harmonious. So we're going to say harmony. It's harmonious, meaning that everything belongs together. Things belong. And there are artists who just want to constantly challenge the idea that things can be in here that don't belong, and so that's what they do. But when we're dealing with the idea of if something is harmonious, you know, you might have this really realistic landscape, but you're not just going to go stick a glossy photo, your school photo of yourself right here in the middle of this landscape. It might even be a landscape that is, you know, it's just really painterly, but then you stick a glossy, realistic photo right there of you smiling. That doesn't belong. It doesn't really work. It's not harmonious. There's lots of ways that things aren't harmonious, that we could ruin some artwork if we think that it should be harmonious, but that's just one way. Or you have a lot of realistic, highly shaded stuff, and then your kid brother comes over and scribbles big black marker all over it. That would not be harmonious, right? Like, there's lots of ways to ruin it. We want it to be harmonious often in art. So this is a universal idea through every culture. All of these are, really, guys. All of these exist in all cultures, and that's why we call them the principles of art. They've been identified as that. Now, the last one is focal point. Focal point is when you make me look at something without even being there and pointing it out. So how do you make me look at something? Well, it doesn't always have to be the center of the picture, but it is the center of interest. Center of interest. And that means you're placing something in your artwork that you're going to get me to look at. So I might, again, have a landscape. Maybe it's a desert scape, and here's the desert, and there's a cactus, and whatever. And this you want me to look at one thing. So I might have a whole bunch of things in here. There's the sun setting on the desert landscape and this cactus. Well, what are you going to do to make me look at the cactus, right? I'm dealing with something dark and then something really light here. So I tend to look at this first. Well, you could do this with color too. Remember your elements of art. If I have a landscape and just one little thing right here, I maybe make that red and everything else is black and white and shaded. Maybe there's some grass out here, but you're going to make this red and everything else black and white. That's going to catch my attention first. That's a focal point. This cactus might be darker than other things, so it makes me look at it first. It's a